Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for taking the time to chat with us today. We're going to be talking about on-set manners and etiquette today, perhaps wrapped up a bit in that we'll touch a bit on safety standards on set as well. My name is Leandra Sharron. I am the former assistant director of Boston SciFi Film Festival. I currently work with the Documentary Educational Resources, which is based here in Boston. We focus on distributing ethnographic documentary films to an educational market across the world. We also do fiscal sponsorship of documentary films. And I am also the director of operations for Boston Underground Film Festival. But I'm very, very happy to, still keep in touch with my roots here at Boston SciFi. And I'm really super glad to see all of you folks here as well. I'll do a bit of an introduction for you all, but then, we can go around and you can feel free to sort of fill in some blanks. And I was thinking that that when we do go around, maybe you could talk about the most recent project that you've worked on, as long as you don't have an NDA to not be able to talk about it, just so that we can sort of have some context for where you're drawing your most recent experience from as we go through and talk about these things. So I'm super happy to see Paul again for the first time in a couple of years. It's really nice to see you. Paul is a writer, director, producer, comic creator, special effects artist. He's also an instructor at New York Film Academy and the author of On Set, The Hidden Rules of Movie Making Etiquette, which I just pulled out of my bookshelf over there. Paul had gifted it to me a couple of years ago. Wonderful, wonderful book. I would highly recommend. I don't know if this is going to be able to show all the earmarks.
I love it. I love it.
I really, really, I cannot suggest this book enough. I found immense value from it, and I don't know if I ever really said thank you, Paul, but thank you.
Well, you're more than welcome.
Yeah, and so Paul had actually gifted that to me when he was at the Boston SciFi Film Festival in 2018 with his wonderful film Encounter, in which that was the year that you won the Best Director Award at Boston SciFi.
Right there.
Yeah, exactly, right next to your Saturn Award. That's so awesome. No, just take a little screenshot of that and brag about it. And also just a quick plug, Encounter is now available to stream free on Peacock TV, right?
Yeah, I just found that out yesterday. Very excited about that.
That's awesome. All right, and then we've got Tishna here as well. So Tishna is currently a producer's assistant at Miramax and a former on-set COVID officer, which is really interesting. Definitely want to talk a little bit about that later. But of course, Tishna has also worked with Boston SciFi for several years as well, in many different roles, I'm sure. And so we're excited to get some insight there as well. And then we've got Alecia Orsini, who also producer, director, of course, in the local Boston area, and is the former president of the New England branch of Women in Film and Video New England, which is a wonderful nonprofit organization that's dedicated to supporting and uplifting the accomplishments of women working in film and television industry. So, yeah, why don't you guys go around and just, give us a little bit more background, anything I might have missed, and let us know what your most recent project was, if you can.
Tishna, you want to start?
Yeah, I'll start. So I recently moved here to Miramax, which is more of a desk job, very, very much assisting behind the scenes for the studio. So very different than on set. But my last on-set job was actually with Alecia on a film called The Woundwood. I was the second AD on that, and it was a very interesting film to be doing at any time, but especially with COVID. We had the film was a horror movie with about 8 kids, and in a mansion that was abandoned. So we were sort of in a bubble, and it was a really interesting experience from a set perspective. Very rarely do you have the chance to have a whole house to yourself that's abandoned and nobody's coming in and out really. And then previously I've been a second AD on a Christmas Lifetime movie with a little bit more moving parts, more locations. I've been a COVID officer on a television show, Kevin Can F Himself. and a few other things here and there. But yeah, those are sort of my more recent experiences.
Great, thanks.
Cool. I'll jump off of that since we just worked together. So yep. So I was the UPM for the Woundwood, which was just if there was anything that they tell you not to do in film, like work with kids and cars, and I think we had a Raven at one point. We scrapped the Raven, but we had stunts. We had a lot going on that really involved a lot of safety and etiquette, a lot of Setiquette. So I did Woundwood, and then I did another film nearly immediately after called Crooked Finger, which was a small, ultra low budget, another horror film with a female-driven character, and we had a couple of stunts in that too. So, and then in the meantime, I had done a short film back in March. In COVID, and we are working on the post-production for that. So that's what I'm on now.
Great. Sounds like a lot of horror. I hope you're keeping Buff in mind for those ones.
Oh, yes.
And actually, I wanted to ask, you said you were the UPM. Could you just...
Oh, yeah. So UPM is the unit production manager. So you're somewhere in between, you're the liaison to set and how, the running of the film set actually goes, and kind of to the budget as well. So you're kind of in between those. And honestly, your UPM is probably your closest thing to HR.
Oh, interesting.
And I will say too that I am the president emeritus Women in Film now. We stepped down after about 6 years, still involved. And one of the things that I'm looking forward to doing more is we hold PA workshops, and we're hoping to hold those quarterly to kind of bring some of what we're going to talk about today into a hands-on sort of atmosphere.
Great. Well, this can sort of be the testing ground for it then. All right, Paul.
So, of course, with perfect timing with the pandemic, I was gearing up to direct my follow-up film, and that pretty much got the kibosh put on that as soon as the pandemic happened. But we tried, it was really interesting. We tried to, there were ways to resurrect it. We were going to actually do it in Greece. We're actually going to film it in Greece. It was going to originally be done in Augusta, Georgia. Then we're going to go to Greece because Greece was COVID-free at the time. And then all of a sudden they got hit, and then I got... Ironically, I was just on the phone 2 days ago with my producers, and it might just move forward again. So we've kept it alive, which is really nice. So I've been doing a lot of, that's a nice thing about wearing a lot of different hats in this industry. I've been doing a lot of different stuff like over the course of the pandemic. So I have a new graphic novel series called Hired Guns that we're working on issue 4, and then the actual graphic novel comes out I think in June we're planning for it. I was doing I have a publishing company, so I was doing recording an audio book with somebody, because we could do that. We could social distance, and they could be, as long as we had the microphone with them. And just been doing a lot of weird stuff, like developing new screenplays, teaching, I teach at the New York Film Academy, and that went online. So it was interesting because I kept busy throughout the course of it, but I wasn't going anywhere physically. And a lot of the in-person stuff was always, falling apart. And it's every time you think it's going to come back, it's like, But just writing screenplays and writing comic books and developing new projects and gearing up for, because of, the Saturn Award, I'm now up for a lot of directing possibilities. So I'm just taking those meetings right now.
Good for you. That's amazing. Good for you. Great. Okay. So I thought the first question that I might ask, and I asked this with all seriousness because I've literally been on one set before, and it was sort of like an amateur project. So in terms of etiquette and manners on set versus rules on set, what would you say the differences are? Maybe give some examples of some of the most important, if you had to sort of boil it down to never forget these rules, and then try not to forget these types of mannerisms on set as well.
Could I jump in quickly on that? Here's the interesting thing. I think the thing that really separates those things is the rules are look, these are the things you're gonna have to do, obviously. The etiquette is really about respect for the people you're working with and the other departments, and knowing that they need to do their jobs as successfully as you need to do their jobs. So there are these certain, the unwritten rules, or, the Setiquette, that are things that can help make people's jobs on set easier. You know what I mean? Or keep, bad things from happening. You know what I mean? Like the rules of etiquette on a film set are almost just as important as the rules that you need to follow in order to, do the project you're doing. I mean, that's really how I see it. So things like saying, stepping up when you're stepping into a trailer, makeup artist trailer. That's because if they're working on an actor and, with an eyeliner, and then you step on the thing and the trailer isn't secured as they're supposed to be, it poke the person in the eye. And it's stuff like that. Or when you're on set and you're taking a picture with a flash and yelling out flashing. So the DP knows that if they're looking through the lens, they should not look through the lens, because they'll get a flash of white. It's stuff like that it's just sort of having that respect for the other people working on a film set, because it should work as a sort of well-oiled machine in theory.
And I'll jump off of that too, because you say striking, you say hot points when you're walking through, but then there's also what is the project you're on, because there are rules if you're on a union set versus a non-union set, and that's sometimes a lot of having when I bring people in and they don't know the union rules, it's like, okay, you can't just go grab that C-stand if you're a PA. You can't just go move that light. There's a specific reason, and a lot of it is based around safety. Like, don't go plug something in to a box. Who knows what else is in there? You have a specific person who is in charge of that thing. So, I love what Paul said about, it's like baked into our culture, that there's these little respectful things that you do. And then, everybody wants to be helpful, but sometimes being helpful means don't touch it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. Sort of from the perspective of, likely if you are going on a set for the first time, you might be assigned as a lockup PA. And the hardest thing, like Alecia said, everything is sort of baked into the culture of film. And so one of the hardest things to learn is sort of the lingo, because the lingo is so tied not necessarily to rules, but to the etiquette. So to say copy and on a walkie, to let people know that they've been heard, because it has to also go very fast. So if you don't know the lingo and you don't know the quick terms, you sort of slow it down. So, and not meaning to, it just happens, and it's so baked into what we do. So when Alecia was saying, if a grip is coming in carrying a ladder and there's 50 people in front of them, a PA should yell points, or the grip will yell points. And that just means get out of the way. But if you don't know that and you're walking in for the first time, all of those terms are sort of tied to the etiquette more so than I think the rules necessarily. So what I think, just as a general statement, that's something I've noticed as well.
Yeah, and here's the thing. Like, I started my career as a makeup effects artist, right? And, I didn't know a lot of these rules, so I was getting yelled at a lot on set, especially with, Alecia brings up the hot boxes, which are, those are electrical boxes that have plugs in them, right? Like an extension cord. So we would always have to plug in hair dryers. Oh my God, if you plugged one of those things in without asking an electrician. And the reason is, the reason is, for safety, number one, because if it's rated for a different, voltage or whatever, you could blow a circuit. But here's the good thing. And I just, it's funny. I was just talking to somebody who was new in the industry, and they just got their first PA job. And it was a friend of a friend, and he wanted just some advice. We got some coffee and so forth. And I said to him, I'm like, look, your job on set is just to do the best you can do, right? And be there for the people, but also to learn. You know what I mean? So you're more valuable. And here's the thing. You're not going to know all this stuff. You're not going to know it. It's almost impossible. But you know what? People appreciate if you ask. It's better not to pretend you know it. You need to ask. You know what I mean? If there's things you're not, because the whole idea is you want the set to run smoothly. So don't pretend you know something when you don't know it, because it's just going to usually cause problems. And you know what? The department heads, the people in the department, they really do appreciate the fact that, you might think, oh, I'm being annoying or something like that, or they're going to think I'm an idiot. No, they're actually going to appreciate the fact that you took the time to ask the question, because they want to be able to do their job with no problems.
And people want to teach.
They do.
They do. They're
Yeah.
Even, after being in the industry for how many years, there are even some of these tiny little cultural differences between, being on a New England set, being on a New York set, being on an LA, being on, we had, there's a German company that comes here that films, and just the little different things. It's like, I'm always asking questions like, oh, why did you do that? Okay. And some of that gets integrated and it gets passed on, and then it becomes part of the bigger culture. So whether you're a PA or whether you're a UPM, you can always be asking questions.
Yeah.
That's great. That actually leads me really well into a question that I had for Tishna, because, I've known you for years now, and I think when we first met, you were sort of at the very beginning stages of starting your career, and now you've got like wonderful, like very professional, films under your belt, Free Guy, Black Friday, The Sleepover, that sort of thing. So like,
nice.
Yeah, could talk a little bit about what that was like. I would assume coming from, more amateur projects with friends and things like that to going on to like a very professional set, where I'm sure that was a little sort of intimidating to know that, everyone else has been doing this and they have this like, sort of unwritten rules that they know already that you didn't. Yeah, talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So the very first thing I did was as a PA was Free Guy. So I sort of hit the ground running, but I was an additional PA. So I was called in when they had really big days and needed a lot of people. And I started as a lockup PA, which if you don't know what that means, that just means you are put somewhere and tell people that they can't walk down this way and they have to go a different way. You reroute people basically. And so my first job on Free Guy had to work on the weekends because a lot of their locations were in the center of Boston. So they had a lot of lockup PAs to basically just reroute people in Boston walking around on a Saturday in the summertime. They did not like us. But that's almost any person's first job on a set is a lockup PA, because you are put somewhere pretty much the whole day. It is a long day, and all you necessarily do is reroute people. But what you also have and are given a walkie and listen to the whole day. So if you find yourself, and what I did was I knew that I wanted to work on sets, and I knew that the only way that I could go from being a lockup PA to something more was just by listening and figuring out the rhythm of a set. And so if someone needed something from me, learning the lingo, learning how to communicate quickly and effectively, and just learning how the walkie worked, because that is the main form of communication on a set. So if you're starting out, and to Paul's point, like a PA is extra hands on a set. Be open to doing anything anyone asks you to do.
Yep.
There are union rules, like Alecia said. So if someone says, go get me a C-stand, do not pick up a C-stand, but go introduce yourself to a grip and say, hi, my name is Tishna. I was asked to get a C-stand to go be brought over there. Can you help me with that? And introduce yourself, make friends. And like Paul said, don't be afraid to ask questions. And that's the only way that you become valuable. That's the only way that you learn the ins and outs of how a set works. And I was very fortunate to have the opportunity to work on such a big set first. There's a lot of benefits to working on small sets. You get to do more because, especially if it's non-union and you're a PA, you do get to pick up the C-stand, and someone might be nice enough to show you how that C-stand works. And you get a chance to maybe figure out the department you want to maybe go into a little bit better on a smaller set. But on a big set, I saw the scale of what was possible. and learned what that looked like really fast. So that when I did do a smaller set, I had a better idea of how to help be more organized, which is the biggest thing on a small set. So there's so much to do on any size movie, TV show, whatever you're doing, that organization is key. So being on that big set and seeing how organized everyone had to be able to get that stunt car over there in a tiny Boston street without hurting anybody, without anything like that happening, to see how they would do that on that scale was easier for me to then understand how I could be helpful when I did the smaller things and seeing how they did it and applying it there. So it allowed me to, I think, climb the ladder a little bit faster, just because I did have the benefit of starting out in a big movie, which the way that happened, I was bored with my corporate job I was doing. I was trying to find something new to do on the weekends. And I signed up to be a background in Defending Jacob, which was the Chris Evans show. And the woman doing my hair, she and I got to talking while she was doing my hair. And I told her what I wanted to do. I wanted to be on sets. Just be kind. And someone, like Alecia said, people want to teach people. They want to help. And the industry, if you are lucky enough to be living in a place like Boston, which has a thriving film community, but it's smaller and we need more people, we're trying to find more people so that we can continue to do the movies there. The tax credit has just been made permanent. It's going to be booming. Miramax, I work for Miramax. We have one movie there already, and I'm sure more will come. So it's...
Gee, I wish they made movies in Los Angeles. In Hollywood.
I'm learning enough. Like, I mean, they make some stuff here, maybe some indie stuff. I don't know.
Can I actually jump off of some of the stuff you're saying?
Yeah.
You're saying so much valuable stuff here. And I just want to, like, I'm trying to keep it all in my head because you got so much great information there. I mean, look, I always say, and here's actually, it's funny. See, I'm always like, I think it's better to come from low budget to go to high budget because when I was a makeup effects artist, I worked on over like 40 films. So I worked on like some of like the lowest Roger Corman stuff and Full Moon movies to like Batman and Robin and, you know, some of the Farley Brothers movies and stuff like that. And because when you're on bigger budget films, you know, you pretty much have everything, you know what I mean? So sometimes it can be really like, when you go to a low budget stuff, it's like, what do you mean I don't have a techno crane I can just pull out of
Right.
But no, but one of the things I really like what you're talking about is it really is important to just be yourself and be open to learning and just be part of the team, because, you know, even a lockdown PA, you know, they're just as important as anybody else on a set. Okay, I know that seems like, what are you talking about? Obviously, yeah, they are, because if you're the PA who has the key to the set and you're the only one and you decide not to show up for work, then they're going to lose hours of their time. You know what I mean? So everybody on a film set is necessary and it is important. And, you know, learning about all the other departments, it really does make you more valuable. And I always would say that I got more jobs based on who I was as a person, based on how talented I was. Okay. Because people saw that I actually cared what I was doing. Right. And, you know, that I took it very seriously and I didn't, you know, dick around. You know what I mean? I knew it was a job and I really enjoyed it. And I tried to be a team player. And that's what gets you jobs. Because when you're working on these sets, they recognize it because they want to work with people they can rely on. Because that's the thing, is time is money on these film sets, especially the lower budget ones. You know what I mean? So if you present yourself as somebody who's very reliable and somebody who they like working with you, then you're gonna be the one who gets the first phone calls.
Especially with like a 16-hour day. Who do you want to be with over a 16-hour day?
Exactly. No, exactly.
Yeah.
That definitely, like, I can think of, I can't tell you how many times that things like that are mentioned in this book. And I think it was even Tom Atkins who had said, like, people want to work with people that they know and like, and they will write a part for you, as an actor if they know you and like working with you, or they'll, make sure and hire you as a special effects artist if they know that they like your work.
Exactly. Yeah, because talent isn't everything in this industry. It really isn't. I mean, this is my like 33rd year in the industry. Oh God, you know what I mean? And it's like, I'm completely uncynical about this. You know what I mean? I really see how this industry kind of works and functions, and I see that all the time. That it's really about people wanting to work with people they feel comfortable with. And just knowing that, because it is a group effort. You can't do this by yourself. If you want to do this by yourself, write novels. You know what I mean, or whatever. You know what I mean? Like it takes a village. You know what I mean? Especially on a huge film like like Free Guy. And one of the things I did when I directed Encounter, my first movie, is I relied on because I was coming into Augusta, and I brought in certain people, but just small. We were using an Augusta crew, and I said to my keys, I said, look, the people you want to work with. Do you know what I mean? I'm not going to tell you, I don't know you, the film community, I'm not going to tell you who to hire, but this is the only thing I ask. Can I please sit down with everybody on the crew before, when we're in pre-production, so I can just get to know them? And when I did that, I sat down with everybody from like the highest position to the keys to the PAs. I sat down and introduced myself to them and told them what I was all about, and and let them know that they are just as important as anybody else on the set. And I think that's important. And it's funny because there were some of them like, I've never talked to a director before. And it's like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because it's like it should be a family environment, and everybody should feel part of the process. Because who wants to just feel like, who wants to just feel like they're just a cog in the wheel, and it's like they don't matter? Nobody wants to feel that way. I mean,
it's ownership of the creative process.
Exactly. And I think that's really important. It was something I'm really proud of doing, and it was something that, and also, the thing too is there was one person that I said to him, I said, can we replace this person? You know what I mean? I just because I got the sense they had like ego. I'm driven by my creative power, my creativeness, right? I'm not ego driven. I'm just not. And if I'm coming in there with no ego as as a writer director, I don't want anybody in my crew like having a bigger ego than. So I could tell this person was going to be a problem. I could just tell. I said, "Can we replace them?" And it was great because we didn't have a bad egg on the set. Everybody got along, and we got the proofs in the pudding. We got the movie done on schedule and under budget, and that's because I had an amazing crew, and a lot of them were green. A lot of them was like those were their first films.
There's something really, something really important about, for everyone who's watching, about being that director. Be that director, because, the director is, the head of the ship, and you have to, if your director is a problem, is a toxic person that does have ego, that doesn't respect the process, that doesn't want to teach, then the whole thing starts falling apart, especially where, we're dealing with COVID. And if you have directors who don't want to follow those safety protocols because they're above something, and that be like Paul. For all of our budding directors, be like Paul. Just respect everybody. The best producers and best directors can do everything a PA does, and knows how important that job is. And then like you said, Paul, everybody feels like they have stake in it. They feel like, all right, I'm not a cog. I am part of this. I have been chosen to be here. And that respect goes a long way, but it's not even just respect. It is safety. Yep. You trust the people that you're with. And too many times do we see safety issues on set. And it does start with the director having respect all the way down.
Yeah. And it's like, I mean, that's the thing. It's so important for, I mean, think about how many people want to work in the film industry, and how lucky we are to, to be doing what we love. Right. So, I mean, that's the thing. It's like I had, one of my actors said to me, it was like we had 3 days left of filming, and we were like, all of us were just sitting around and we were like, hanging out after set. And he's like, when are you going to have your big freak out, Paul? You haven't had your big family? Every project I've been on, the director freaks out at some point. And I'm like, I guess I'm not going to do that, I guess. You know what I mean? But that's the thing. Like, I always came to set with a very happy attitude because, I mean, here's the thing. I'm directing my first movie. This is a dream come true. So for anybody on a film set, whatever you're doing, I mean, think about how hard you work to get there. And don't ever forget that you're getting to do what you want to do, or you're starting on that journey. I mean, one of the things I talk to my students a lot about is that you got to enjoy the journey. It's not a sprint, right? It's think of it more of a long distance, like a marathon. You guys are Bostoners. Boston
Marathon.
And enjoy the journey. Because it's like a lot of the people who like burn bright at the beginning, they tend to flame out. I won't quote Blade Runner on you. The candle that burns twice as bright burns half as long. But that's the thing. It's like you're doing what you love, or you're on the road to doing what you really want to do. So why would you sabotage that? It should be exciting to come to set every day. I mean, you're not going to work at like a fast food restaurant or like wait tables. You are on a film set with people that you want to be around who can get you your next job. Why wouldn't you be thrilled every day of that? Yeah. I mean, when it gets tough, it does get tough. But,
So this is interesting. You guys are on this thread that I would like you to maybe talk a little bit more, and maybe this is a good time for you to talk about your clothing preferences. But so when you are sort of like the king of the show, right, and when it is your set, are there any certain like etiquette that you sort of disregard in terms of almost, Paul, like you're talking about like having an ego and people sort of like having this like, oh, like fear about talking to you or feeling nervous around you or that sort of thing. So you try to dispel that. And I mean, yeah, any sort of like etiquettes that you sort of do away with or any sort of like expectations that you do have in terms of clothing or behavior practices, that sort of thing.
I mean, I'm gonna say I I have my pet peeves about being on set. One of them is, for the love of God, show up with closed-toed shoes. You're gonna be on your feet. Please wear proper footwear. I have absolutely removed people from my set for wearing improper footwear because it's not safe, and they're gonna be miserable. So go home and get the correct shoes for the job that you're doing. And that goes, especially living here in New England, where I think the high is 11 today, being ready for, every weather situation. Those are things that, but the shoes really drives me bonkers, I know it's prevalent in the film industry, smoking. I cannot stand the cigarette smoking. And Tish, I was pretty adamant on Woundwood. I was like, if you smoke, I don't want to know. And it better not take away from you answering someone on the walkie. I do not want to see cigarette butts all around the set. I get it. People smoke. It's terrible for you. Don't do it. Stop.
Well, I remember on that, it was particularly a thing because it was a movie with so many kids. So it was like, if you smoke, just go away, step away. And so that was also part of it.
Step far away. And by the way, we're in the middle of COVID. Smoking is not COVID safe. No, I don't want to see 5 of you over behind that tree smoking together. It better be just one of you puffing really quick and then getting back to work. I just have very little tolerance for the smoking. And it's a respect thing too, in the sense that, if I showed up to set with a really smelly perfume, you'd probably hate it. You got to be in a closed, area with me. We're already on top of each other and probably smelling really sweaty. So now I got to smell your cigarette smoke on you. All right, I'll get off it. But anyway, but that's another thing too, is, having respect for the people around you. Throw some deodorant in there. And it's funny because I think my coming into the film industry, I went to college for for film. And I had a professor who would throw you out of class if he knew you were a smoker and you were late to class for smoking. You know, and I was like, but it's true. I don't want to sit there and smell you, or, you know, not having the respect to show up on time.
Yeah.
That's a whole, you know, what do we say? It's like, you know, 15 minutes, you know, before is on time.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
On time is late.
Yeah.
On time is late. You know, and there's a reason for that. There's a reason, and it is a matter of respect that, you know, you get to set, you gotta, you know, go sign in, you gotta, you know, go to the bathroom, you gotta make sure that you've got whatever you
go
need
to Crafty and get some snacks or food.
Go to Crafty, go get your nose poked for your COVID stuff, you know. So that respected people's time as well, and it just speaks to, you know, I'm here for the big vision and I'm ready to go. And you know, especially as a UPM, as somebody who's making sure that things are running and running safely, it's good to know, you know, I can identify right away who are those people that are just here to collect a paycheck, and who are my rock stars that I'm going to move up right away.
Yes. Yeah.
So yes, don't smoke on my set, and for the love of God, get some good shoes. Anyway.
Anything else for you, Paul?
So wait, but these are like either pet peeves or things that like I don't like. Well, I mean, like, here's something interesting, which I found out after the fact, which I gotta be honest, actually, I was a little like, I appreciated it in hindsight, but I didn't ask for it, was that evidently my producers would shield me from certain things on set, which is nice, but I don't. I would rather know what's going on. You know what I mean? Like I'd rather know what's going on if there's an issue, because I'm a problem solver. I mean, that's what I like to do. So I that wasn't something like I would ever ask for, and I don't feel like it is necessary to have a barrier between me and the other crew. Like one of the things I learned, I worked on a bunch of the Farrelly Brothers movies. I think I worked like 4 or 5 of them. Starting with There's Something About Mary, and Me, Myself, and Irene, and Stuck on You, and Shallow Hal and stuff like that. And one of the things I really loved about them is they were extremely collaborative, and they had it really was like the same crew almost every time. And if you had an idea for a joke, they would want to hear it. I mean, they openly encouraged it. And that's the thing, is like, especially on, being a director on my first feature, right? It's like, I'm making an idiot if I'm not going to listen to other people. I mean, I know what I want to do, and I'm going to ultimately make the decision and filter it through what I want as a director. I'm confident with that. But if somebody has an idea, or somebody wants to, then I can hear it. There's nothing wrong with that. As long as you're not being disruptive to the flow, and as long as you're doing it at an appropriate time, I don't have an issue with that at all. And it's like, and I think the more you bond with your crew, and the more you get to know them, the better it's going to be off. Because at the end of the day, then they're going to be working that much harder for you. And when you're on a low budget, especially when you're on a low budget, every moment counts, and every dollar counts, and everything. Then anywhere I can do to save time, I want to hear it.
Paul, I want to come produce for you.
I've always been like this. I mean, can I say the proof's in the pudding with this is that I still have a tech stream going. It's not 3 years with my entire cast, like Luke, everybody. They've been on this text stream. We like wish each other, happy birthdays. We, when everybody has a new project, we always like support it. Or when somebody, I mean, and it's everybody. My entire cast is still on this text stream. Okay, I mean, when does that ever happen? Do you know what I mean? But it's like it's not like patting myself on the back. I'm just saying, it's like, well, this is what happens when you respect everybody on your on your crew, and this is what happens when you make an environment. And look, I mean, the movie won awards, you know what I mean, and is doing well. So it's not like it wasn't
a fluke.
So there was certainly no bad aspect of being nice to everybody. And I'm not. I mean, look. I've been on plenty of sets where it's a nightmare on set, and there's egos everywhere, and the movie still comes out great. You know what I mean? And then there's one where it's a complete love fest, and it's a piece of crap movie. So I don't want to say there's any real correlation to it. but it's certainly nicer to come into work when everybody likes each other.
Right. The same, Tish, we've got our text thread.
Yes, we do have our text thread, and that was it, that we had a nice vibe with everybody. But
Isn't that a nice thing?
yeah, it is. And it's pet peeve, but also like to sort of continue off of Paul of just like being nice and respectful, but like this etiquette idea of you're going to hear a lot from people, especially if you're starting out, to like, don't talk to that actor, or don't talk to the director or the producer, or things that are sort of etiquette on set that create kind of these toxic environments of and feed into egos and things.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it's gonna be really hard to combat on really big movies with really big names, and they've sort of, their whole careers have been sort of like, you are the moon and stars and no one should even look at you. So I think that will be hard to combat. But in terms of like, if you find yourself working on an indie project or a smaller project, or if you're lucky enough to be working on Paul's set and he allows for an environment where he's not untouchable and you can't go talk to him because you're a PA, if you manage to find those people, stick with those people, because it's hard to find that. There's a lot of egos, and it is sort of advertised as set etiquette. It's just, you don't do that. You just don't go talk to the director. You don't talk to certain actors or the star, unless they talk to you first. It automatically creates this weird thing. And so if you find yourself in an ability like Paul to break that cycle, I encourage that.
Yeah.
Well,
trust me,
go ahead, Leandra.
Well, no, I don't want to tell someone else's story, but this really reminds me, another person who's worked with Boston SciFi for a really long time, Miriam Olkin, is, sort of around the same time as you, Tishna, really started getting involved, and once again has just been on these wonderful sets. And she was telling me a story about when she was on the set of Don't Look Up. And, she was working really hard, and eventually, after months and months, they saw her and they saw her good ideas, and she started talking to the right people, and she was just friendly. And I mean, you all know Miriam, she's a wonderful person.
Yeah.
Very easy to talk to, always, wants to help people learn, that sort of thing. And she just ended up talking to the right people, and mentioning that she has, is writing some of her own work. And then they were like, okay, like Adam knows who you are. Adam McKay knows who you are. And you've gotten permission, like at one of these times when it's really slow, like you can go up to him and you can like have a conversation. And so she got to like go have, probably just a 10-minute conversation with him, but it was like, she had to sort of follow those rules and etiquette to get there, and then, work really hard, and it was eventually seen, and and she was rewarded for that. And so
you know what, I can give an example just like that. Okay. So, and it really almost owe my writing career in some respects to this, is that I was a puppeteer so they did a Land of the Lost TV series in the 90s, right? We did like 2 seasons of it, and it was Sid and Marty Krofft, who I like grew up watching, Sigmund the Sea Monster, and HR Puff and stuff, and so forth. So I was a puppeteer on this, and during the second season, it was when I was just starting to teach myself how to become a writer. But I got to know everybody over the course of it, and I came up with an idea for an episode. All right. And I'm like, all right, well, I got to know the producers. They know who I am. Then I just found a respectful time to talk to them, not when we're in the middle of shooting anything. And I just said, hey, look, I got an idea for an episode, and I was wondering if I could pitch it to you guys. And they were like, sure. Well, I know they were big, just play games. Like, sure, we like you, Paul. Sure. You know what I mean? But here's the thing, is that I had read every script, because I had to know every script. So I knew how they wrote their screenplays. And, I had some other ideas too. So they said yes. So what I did was I like hunkered down, and instead of just writing a pitch, I wrote the entire episode, and I wrote like 9 pitches to other potential episodes. And I put a nice package together, and then I presented it to them. And they were like, whoa, you know what I mean? Like, this was not what they were expecting. They read my script. They loved my script. They gave it to ABC, and ABC approved it for the 3rd season. And then the show got canceled. But, mind you, right before Jurassic Park came out. But you know what? What it did do is it made me feel like, look, for what it's worth, even though it never got made, ABC had approved it. You know what I mean? And that gave me the, the confidence as a writer that maybe there's something to this. Do you know what I mean? And it really, it's about turning defeats into victories. I'm a big advocate of turning defeats into victories. And, you know, that really got me going. But that was because they recognized that I was somebody who cared. I always came to set, and I was always early, and I always did my best, and they respected that. And, you know, I've got tons of stories like this where it's just being respectful, being a team player. People notice.
Right.
They notice. They really do. They especially notice if you're not. Okay, so you know, if you do your job and you do it to the best of your abilities, that's all anybody can ever ask of you. And they do respect it, and they do notice. They do notice.
Mm-hmm.
I want to add something, and it might lead into some other question that maybe Leandra wanted to ask, but I think it's hard to ignore what we're all saying of security and also being there and being a part of it without thinking of the most recent thing that's happened, which was Rust and the incident with that movie. There's a lot of people that did not do their job properly for it to get in that man's hands and to have it fire and have a live bullet in it and kill somebody. So many people, even I know Alec Baldwin is the face of this and
right.
all that, but there are so many people that had to have not done their job for that to have happened. And that comes the etiquette part of sort of feeling like, well, someone else is going to do it, or it's not my responsibility, or not taking it seriously, no matter what level of a movie it is, not having that accountability. And to Paul's point, you know, like someone gave Paul the opportunity to show just writing something that maybe to them seemed frivolous, because he came to work every day. He did his job well. He gave a positive attitude, and that opportunity opened up for him. But it just shows that if every single person isn't really doing that, the actual implications of what that could mean. And so etiquette of like, you need to care, you need to do your job, and you need to take ownership of it, whether that means I'm a lockup PA and my job is to stand here and redirect people, and I'm going to do that to the best of my ability every day, because if I don't, a car can come and kill somebody. If I'm not paying attention to stop them, a car can come through, blast through this barrier, or a person can sneak by me and we're doing a stunt with a car and they can get hit with a stunt car. No, to Paul's point, everyone is important, and every single person needs to do their job and do it as best as they can. And it's long hours and it's long stuff. But in terms of set etiquette and safety and all of that, having the attitude of just, I am here and I'm going to do the best that I can every day and take ownership and not assume someone else is going to do it, that is the key to all of it, really. No matter what your job is.
That's me, Tishna. I could not have said that better. Honestly, that's great.
And
Yeah,
that
having
seems like
pride in yourself.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No,
go ahead.
No, go.
No, that's the point where it seems to not quite be etiquette, but actually a rule, right? Like a rule, not just like behave this way.
Yeah,
it's everybody's job on set to be in think about safety.
Yeah.
And so also just to give context, I mean, in case anyone listening lives under a rock and hasn't heard about this, of course, we're referencing the accident that had happened on set with a live gun. Actually, I had marked the page in the prop section of the book where it talks about gun is hot. But the accidental killing of female cinematographer Helena Hutchins on the project of Alec Baldwin's called Rust is what we're referencing. But my general question was sort of like, what is your takeaway, right? Like, what exactly went wrong there? Because it's like you said, it wasn't just one accident. It wasn't one person who forgot to do something and then someone got killed.
It was negligence on a lot of people.
It really was.
And lack of respect.
Lack
of respect for the bottom all the way up, and ego.
I mean, that's the thing. It's like, it's scary when you're doing, we didn't really have a lot of stunts on Encounter. But we did have some gun. We actually had some real, GBI, FBI, SWAT people like on the set. And we had at the end of the movie, there's this, no spoilers. And my first AD, God bless him, Josh Friedman, he really knows his stuff when it comes to this. And it's like, yeah, they literally show every fire, and he allows anybody on set, anybody from PA to the director to the producers, can come and look at that gun and make sure that there's nothing in that gun, and it's presented to the crew. Anybody can come in and inspect it. Okay. And then it is closed in front of everybody, and it is handed to the actor. Okay. There is a very, very specific protocol. And then, hot gun. So people know, and we're not, there are levels to make sure what happened on Rust doesn't happen. And there was, boy, I only know what I've read and so forth, but it was like, oh my God. I mean, the amount of negligence involved there was baffling.
And even in the stance of, okay, so etiquette, not necessarily it's a rule with guns specifically because of safety, but more so, maybe this is more ego, but like in a situation where you're doing that, and especially if the what they were doing, I'm assuming, is Alec Baldwin is aiming at the camera because the DP was hit. So obviously the shot has that. So one of the questions that's always been asked whenever I find myself in conversations with people who also work in the film industry and are doing that is like, why was anyone behind the camera?
Right.
If you know that that's happening, right? Essentially, theoretically, you could set that up in a way that, like, we know that this shot is happening. It is set up. It's all good to go. Why was she there? And she's the DP. Obviously, she'd want to see it. But why was someone behind her? Why was other people behind her? Why were other people hit in any way? Like, and that's etiquette in the sense of like, we all know that this is happening. We all know that this is dangerous, whether we've done, even if they did everything correctly and the gun's empty and has nothing to shoot, but still you take it as seriously as if it was loaded. So why is anyone standing there? And that, I think, comes from what we have been talking about this whole time of like someone being like, oh no, it's fine. I can stand there. I have to go. I have to look at the camera. I have to look at the monitor. It's fine. It's fine. Everyone else has done their job. It'll be fine.
Right.
It's the assuming that everybody has done it and you don't have to.
Yeah, and also, sorry, just to jump in quickly, things still go wrong. Like, it's funny because I have two scenarios. I'll tell you just very quickly that they both have. One happened on Critters 4 and one happened on Critters 3. And this is no indictment on anybody. They were very good, but things can still go wrong. Like, so on Critters 3, I was puppeteering and my critter caught fire because it was shot and it caught fire, and it's like my hand was up inside it. And it's like, that's scary. And then I got shot in the face with a blank in Critters 4, but that was, it was more my fault because I was supposed to, but someone was shooting at the puppet and I needed to go down behind something, and I brought the puppet down, before I brought my face down, but they had me wearing safety goggles, so it was good. It was all done by the book, but there's going to be sometimes human error, and I just felt, I just felt like the WAD stuff, and I was sort of like, what just happened? So things can happen even when everything is done right. And in both situations, everything was done right and by the book. It really was.
Right.
Well, I want to echo a little bit of, there's human error, but I also think there is a culture of putting, and this we have to fight against. And I see this especially because my wheelhouse is women putting themselves in dangerous situations because they feel like their job relies on it. We look at Sarah Jones. There's no way she should. And if you're not familiar with Sarah Jones, she died when she was hit by a train because she was trying to save a camera, and she felt it was part of her job to should drop that camera and run.
Yeah,
but she didn't. And there's another situation where they failed all the way along the line and ego was involved. And, same here. It's like, I can't help but feel that some of those women who were involved said, okay, well, somebody else knows better than me. Somebody else has checked this. I'm going to feel safe in this situation. You have to question these things. And feel confident in the fact that there is no reason anybody ever should die on a film set. We're playing pretend, people. There's no reason anybody should die for this. My husband's a camera operator, and he's a big guy. He's 6'3", he's a linebacker, and he used to, do the follow-alongs with cops. And they could not find a bulletproof vest big enough for him. Do you bet that he held up that production until they found him a bulletproof?
Yes.
You know, and there's, would I feel, and I've even done this myself, have I felt empowered to say, I don't think this is safe? I've had to learn to do that and find my voice and know that the people around me are going to respect what I'm saying. So there's a lot of little pieces that are part of this, but definitely kindness and ego are killers. You know, if you don't have kindness and you've got a lot of ego on set, things will go wrong. It's a guarantee.
And so we've just gotten the 5-minute warning, and we've been having such great conversation that I didn't get to all the questions I wanted to ask. So I'm going to kind of roll it all into one. I mean, the fact that this tragic accident had happened and it was very much in the limelight, right? Got lots of press. But it was sort of at the same time as, however far into COVID we were. And that was a question I wanted to ask as well, like how are these etiquettes changing a bit as life is changing in the middle of this pandemic, but also it was amidst these sort of like threats of striking on the part of, professional film and television industry workers. And so I'm curious, how that might have played in. Like there were probably less people on set than there could have been because of COVID precautions. And then also, if people are striking, then, or potentially striking, I'm curious how you think that might have affected the situation, if at all.
Well, there's a lot there. It might be worth going over, just saying, going over in time. So as far as COVID is concerned, the thing that, and I've done films now pre-vaccine, post-vaccine, and now with Omicron, and Omicron is shutting down sets in a whole new way because it's just such a different variant. So the things that we thought were etiquette before don't even apply with this particular new variant. So when it comes to the etiquette, especially early on when I did my short back in March of 2021, and we just had masks and we couldn't even get testing. We had some people that could go and get a PCR and then come back, and we tried to stagger it in a certain way. But it was like, okay, we know our food needs to be wrapped. We know, individualized. We have to stay a little bit further apart. We came up with a zone system for our tiny film set to be like, okay, costume and makeup are over here and nobody goes into that zone and camera goes in this zone. It was really hard to do on, like, I'm talking about a $5,000 budget short film that we filmed over 4 days. And then you get to these big budget films. And I'll shout out Project Indie Hope, because they did us a world of good of providing the ability for an indie film to have regular testing. But yeah, same thing. Like I mentioned the smoking before. Bringing a water bottle, and we always used to say that just for having environmental reasons, but keep your own stuff to you. Just being really cognitive that some people are worried more than others, and that's okay. Everybody needs to be, but you've got to respect people where they're at with this thing, and now Omicron has changed the game once again. We're already looking at things having gotten pushed back in our region, saying, okay, we got to give this a little bit of time for COVID, and getting access to PPE, getting access to testing. Our number one defense is testing. I am triple vaccinated and I still ended up with COVID, and it's with Omicron, being near somebody masked, vaccinated outside. So this new variant is going to change the way we do things again. But as far as the strike is, there's a lot of toxic stuff that happens in the film industry. There's a ton of it. Working like we were saying earlier, who do you want to be with for a 16-hour day?
Yeah.
You know, who do you want to hang out with? You know, and again, this goes to a union, non-union thing. I was working for, Tishna and I worked on a union set together where, you got to call lunch, call last man, make sure that you are keeping an eye on how long you have those kids on set. And there are reasons for those things as well. Being overtired, working with electricity and heavy equipment, you just got to think of a film set as a construction site that you're, recording, so you have to think about the safety of those things. And what COVID has taught a lot of us is that we can change. A lot of things in the film industry happen because they've always happened.
Yeah.
So it's time to change.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
She said that perfectly. I have no notes.
I know.
All right.
Yeah.
There.
I mean, I can keep going. This is a scope.
My least favorite phrase in the world is, well, why do we do it this way? Because we've always done it that way.
Yeah,
That's just how we do it. That's my least favorite answer to a question ever, because it makes no sense. And it is the same mindset. Usually the people saying that have the same mindset of someone else will do it.
Yeah.
And that's when things go wrong. So if everybody has the ability to sort of shift their minds in, whether it be COVID, whether it be the rules around unions and how we treat crew members and understanding that the folks who are giving you money and wanting a product that they can sell and see this very much as just a business have a very different end goal and mindset than maybe the crew members, and finding the middle ground of those two things and understanding as long as everybody plays the game of what can we do as best as we can to benefit everybody in the way that we can do it, and doing the actual work, willing to do the work and not just assuming someone else will do it, or let's just do it how we've always done it, things can get better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Seems like a great place to end.
Yeah.
On a positive note. I like it. Well, thank you guys so much for taking the time to chat with us. This has been a really, really great talk.
Yeah. Thank you so much for moderating, and thanks everybody.
Yeah, this is great. Let's do this again.
Yeah, really. Not to be recorded, but